World War I. The Role of Women's Suffrage. Did the United States fight a total war in World War I? By Olga and Caitlin Tice. Mr. President, if you sincerely desire to forward the interests of all the people, why do you oppose the national enfranchisement of women? World War I was not just a physical battle in Europe. Back in the United States, women were fighting a different type of war. Before 1920, women had been denied the right to vote, so throughout World War I, women were struggling to gain suffrage while the men were off in combat. The definition of a total war is that all resources are put towards the war effort. Though many women were in support of the war, there was a large group that was against it. Because of this, the United States did not fight a total war during World War I. The National Women American Suffrage Association, abbreviated as NAWSA, was first formed in 1890 through the unification of the American Women's Suffrage Association, AWSA, and the National Women's Suffrage Association, NWSA. In 1915, Carrie Chapman Catt was re-elected as president of NAWSA after serving from 1900 to 1904. 1 year later, Catt held a secret meeting after the NAWSA convention, where she told her executive council of a plan to get the 19th Amendment submitted by Congress and ratified by the 36 necessary states. This plan was called the Winning Policy, or the Winning Plan. It was based on the assumption that if you could get state representatives to support female suffrage legislation, they will likely support a national amendment. By 1920, Catt sought to win Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, New York, Maine, North Dakota, and a southern state. Most feminist leaders, including Catt, strongly opposed World War I before America entered the war. That all changed, however, when in 1917, Catt made a strategic decision to reverse herself and support American involvement. She urged women to contribute to the war by selling war bonds, working in factories, and volunteering for the Red Cross. In exchange, NAWSA members were awarded government jobs and finally gained support from Woodrow Wilson, who thought the passing of the federal suffrage amendment was vital in winning the war. One branch of the NAWSA was the National Women's Party, which formed in 1916. At its most, the NWP had around 50,000 active members. These women were strongly opinionated and openly and firmly against the war. Led by a Quaker woman named Alice Paul, the NWP followers, highly influenced by British suffragists, fought for their rights. The NWP had many marches to draw attention to their cause. They also picketed in front of the White House for nearly a year and a half and spoke against President Wilson. Some women were jailed for obstructing traffic and consequently began a hunger strike and were force-fed in jail. This illustrates how not all women were supportive of the war. Furthermore, President Wilson claimed that World War I was a war for democracy. The NWP claimed that the United States was not a democracy. How could a country call itself a democracy if its women were not allowed to vote? The women believed it was more important to have full democracy in the United States before branching out to other nations. A real democracy would be achieved when women's suffrage was achieved. In conclusion, the United States did not fight a total war during World War I. Even though NAWSA supported the war and helped the United States, the NWP did just the opposite, taking attention away from the war effort. There is no doubt that American women learned a great deal from the war. They not only became more confident in themselves, but also stronger and more determined to win the right to vote. As put by Carrie Chapman Catt, the war had a tremendous effect on women's suffrage by revolutionizing the whole sphere of women.